The Age of Enlightenment was the European intellectual movement across Europe. In France, of course, represented by such phenomenal and revolutionary thinkers as René Descartes at the beginning of this period, or Rousseau, Diderot, Condorcet as the great leaders of the French Enlightenment, or the English and Scottish Enlightenment, including John Locke, whose ideas were fundamental in France's revolution, David Hume, Adam Smith, whose economic ideas about liberalism proved to be fundamental, and the German Enlightenment, most notably at the pinnacle of German Enlightenment thought, the philosopher Immanuel Kant. Well, these ideas were revolutionary ideas of a new society based on rationalism was the hope, based on governance that was according to rational principles to establish the basis for happiness and safety of the population. And the notion of enlightenment was that human beings could use science and reason to create human institutions that would provide the basis for human well-being. And that was the essence of the thought that generated the Declaration of the Rights of Man and the Rights of the Citizen in 1789. In this age of enlightenment, the U.S. Revolution, the Revolutionary War, and the establishment of U.S. constitutional government, which took place with the Constitutional Convention of 1787, and the French Revolution were deeply intertwined. Remember that France really delivered American independence. George Washington may have been the commander-in-chief of the revolutionary forces, but he could never have delivered the victory over Britain but for the backing of the major land power of Europe, of France. And it was Lafayette, the commander of the French forces in the American Revolution, that became a decisive part of America's revolution and a decisive link to the French Revolution, because the lead author of the Declaration of the Rights of Man was none other than Lafayette. And who helped him on the text? That was none other than the new U.S., and because the U.S. had just been born, the new U.S. ambassador to France, a gentleman we know, Thomas Jefferson, who would become America's third president. But Thomas Jefferson not only helped Lafayette draft the Declaration of the Rights of Man and of the Citizen, but Thomas Jefferson, of course, had drafted a preceding document that was the direct progenitor of the Declaration of the Rights of Man, and that was none other than Thomas Jefferson's draft of the American Declaration of Independence of July 1776. And it's worth recalling the words of the U.S. Declaration of Independence to understand the French Revolution, because both were the creations of the Enlightenment. Thomas Jefferson drafted the Declaration of Independence, basing his ideas on those of Locke and Montesquieu and the other Enlightenment thinkers. And Jefferson, of course, famously wrote in the Declaration of Independence, "We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal and endowed by their creators with certain inalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. That governments are instituted among men to secure these rights, deriving their just powers from the consent of the governed. And that when any form of government becomes destructive of these ends, it is the right of the people to alter or abolish it, and to institute new government, laying its foundations on those principles and organizing its powers on those forms which to them shall seem most likely to secure their safety and happiness. Rather remarkable, and clearly the link of America and France in putting down new fundamental bases of governance based on the European Enlightenment ideas. And it's remarkable when we think of the Declaration of the Rights of Man and of the Citizen, how directly it has inspired the world in the 20th century and continues to inspire us today. And I want to illustrate that with the opening of the Declaration and how those words resonate. And so if I look at the opening statement of the Declaration of the Rights of Man of the Citizen, Article 1, men are born and remain free and equal in rights. Social distinctions may be founded only upon the general good. Now, that idea, men are born and remain free and equal in rights, is the opening clause, in essence, of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, adopted by the whole world in 1948 after the horrors of World War II. Listen to the Article 1 of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. All human beings are born free and equal in dignity and rights. They are endowed with reason and conscience and should act towards one another in a spirit of brotherhood. So we can see this line of connection from the Declaration of Independence to the Declaration of the Rights of Man and of the Citizen to the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, finding a fundamental dignity for all people and reaching now the idea of a universal commitment adopted by all governments in the world. And as we are at the 75th anniversary of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, remembering that fundamental contribution of the ideas of the American and the French Revolution is important, because these ideas proved to be resonant with all societies in the world, not only those two societies or their neighbors, but adopted by the entire world. Now, we should also remember, of course, that these tumultuous events of the French Revolution, and indeed this high aspiration for universal dignity followed by terror, followed by war, meant the tremendous and still unending controversy about how to make change. Because the French Revolution was an attempt to use reason and political institutions to create a society of reason. It quickly descended into a terror of unreason and war, though over a longer period of time it had a profound and lasting inspiration for the world. One of the most important reflections on the events taking place in France was written from just across the Channel in London by one of the leading thinkers of the day, leading philosopher and politician, Edmund Burke, who soon after the beginning of the French Revolution, wrote his reflections on the French Revolution. And Burke, from the start, said that the French Revolution was a horror, not a triumph of reason, not a way to bring about human institutions for the good, not a way for people to alter or abolish government and enact new government, deriving its forms and principles on the basis of a rational construction, as those people undertaking that effort may view it. Burke said that's not how government should work or can work. Burke said that government must be based on tradition, on gradual change, on hallowed ideas of a culture, not on a rational, radical thinking of new institutions. And Burke, in his reflections on the French Revolution, begun already in 1789, said, "This will go bad. This will be wrong, because our revolution in England, our glorious revolution of 1688, was not the idea of overturning society on new abstract principles, but of establishing government on the basis of our hallowed institutions going back centuries." And so Burke took a view that change must be organic, gradual, culturally based, conservative. He became the hero of conservatives for the following centuries. As soon as he wrote, the pamphlet war erupted in London, and the next great pamphlet was written by Mary Wollstonecraft, a brilliant young woman who died very young, but in her brief lifetime wrote absolutely scintillating documents about human rights and women's rights. And immediately she responded to Burke saying, "Nonsense, old man. This is not the change we need. We need the rights of human beings. We need to think and to abolish privilege, to abolish the aristocratic privilege you're representing. Your conservatism is nothing but defending the old order, and we can't have that. We need change." And so she wrote her reflections on the rights of man in an extremely powerful document. Then came Thomas Paine, who was already one of the great pamphleteers and advocates of the American Revolution, and he wrote on the rights of man, again in a transformative response to Burke, again saying, "Nonsense. We need to think about what society should be." And Paine went even further, because in the rights of man, he not only said privilege should end, government should be on the basis of the common good and on the basis of representation, but Paine envisioned already in the early 1790s the idea of the welfare state, because he said the rights of man also include economic rights, the rights to survive. It's not good enough for the propertied class to be represented. It's not even good enough for political representation for all. There must be economic well-being for all, and a fair tax system and a fiscal system, a public budget directed towards economic rights is what we need. He was at least 100 years ahead of his time. And Paine's ideas as well find their resonance in the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, because the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, influenced by Paine, influenced by Lafayette, influenced by Jefferson, and influenced by their immediate authors, Franklin and Eleanor Roosevelt said that human rights include not only civil and political rights, but also economic, social, and cultural rights. And so we see this long tradition and the long debate. What is the right nature of social change? Does rapid change lead to terror and upheaval, or does it lead to rationality and the possibility of addressing the common good? It is a debate which continues to this day. I think, though, we can say that the ideas that government is instituted among men and women for the purpose of securing human well-being and safety is a lasting and fundamental idea, and that we should be able to use our human reason to design institutions to secure the rights of men and women and children and future generations, so that we can achieve human well-being for all.